When a countdown timer is taking down to zero on a limited time sale, your brain registers an immediate fear of missing out. You feel a physical, automatic urge to click buy. Marketers have used artificial urgency to drive impulsive decisions for decades. Today, modern cybercriminals weaponize those same psychological triggers to compromise human psychology rather than digital software. Psychologist Daniel Kahneman mapped out how we process information, revealing that the human brain operates on two completely different tracks. First is System 2. This is the prefrontal cortex, the brain's deliberate, high-level circuit responsible for critical thinking. Then there is System 1. These are the primitive regions of the brain, like the amygdala, which govern fast, emotional, and automatic reflexes. Even with the most expensive digital security in place, hackers can achieve complete access by intentionally disabling your System 2 logic to force a catastrophic System 1 reflex. Imagine a web browser suddenly freezing, followed by a loud, flashing pop-up warning that your computer is infected with a critical virus. Your body instantly floods with high arousal stress signals. This triggers a panic response that physically shuts down the logical prefrontal cortex before you even have a chance to assess the situation. It is a phenomenon known as amygdala hijacking. Hackers also target the exact opposite end of the emotional spectrum. They tap directly into the brain's reward center using dopamine-driven greed or intense curiosity. This is a brain scan showing the nucleus accumbens, a region deep in the brain that tracks positive subjective arousal and emotional attraction. When activated, it effectively suppresses the brain's internal risk assessment signals. You experience this when you receive a phishing text promising a free tech device, or when an employee finds a USB drive in the parking lot labeled salaries and plugs it in out of pure curiosity. Whether induced by sheer terror or irresistible greed, high arousal emotional spikes physically blind the brain to obvious digital red flags. Because our brains burn a massive amount of energy, they constantly look for efficiency. When we see a familiar symbol or routine, we drop our skepticism, a state psychologists call cognitive ease. Attackers weaponize this trust by perfectly mimicking authoritative entities. They copy recognized software logos or spoof a text message to look exactly like a message from your CEO. They also exploit the Zygarnik effect, the severe psychological itch humans feel to finish an incomplete task. Receiving a fake unpaid invoice or a failed package delivery notification creates intense psychological tension. Clicking the link feels like the fastest way to resolve that stress. By wrapping malicious intent in familiar logos and unresolved tasks, hackers drive the brain to resolve its own psychological tension by following a harmful prompt. Your vulnerability skyrockets depending on your environment. When you are overworked or highly stressed, your cognitive load is maxed out, which impairs your working memory. This leads to attentional tunneling. Your intense focus on an immediate stressor makes you completely blind to peripheral details, causing you to look right past a misspelled sender address. On the flip side is the illusion of knowledge. Many people believe their basic computer skills protect them from these threats, when in reality, that overconfidence only increases their risk. A distracted, overtaxed, or overconfident mind is inherently defenseless. Under these conditions, even the simplest phishing attacks succeed. We cannot reprogram millions of years of evolutionary hardwiring, but we can change the way we interact with digital triggers. The tech industry is obsessed with creating frictionless user experiences, yet effective security requires the opposite, a practice of thoughtful slowing. We need to practice cognitive friction. This means intentionally creating operational delays, giving your slow-moving prefrontal cortex the time it needs to boot up and assess a threat. A powerful defense is the use of refusal scripts. These are pre-planned pathways you can rely on when placed under emotional fire by a scammer. For example, if an alert makes you panic, you name that feeling out loud to break the tension. Then, instead of clicking the urgent link, you manually open a new browse tab to check your account directly. Digital security ultimately rests on cognitive sovereignty, the ability to pause the panic and force the brain back into a slow, analytical state.